Hello and welcome to the Future of Loyalty podcast with me, your host, Tom Peace. The Future of Loyalty are a series of informative and engaging podcasts with a laser focus on the emerging trends within the customer loyalty, engagement and CRM sector. I invite industry leaders and subject matter experts to discuss the future developments in customer strategy, and all our discussions are focused on where the industry is going next. Our discussions are fueled by a passion for new developments and innovations in the sector, and we aim for about 20 minutes, perfect for your coffee break, your lunchtime, or your journey home. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe at www.theloyaltypeople.global to get all our content direct to your inbox. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Future of Loyalty podcast. Today is slightly different because I'm joined by two people, not one, and today we're going to be talking about an issue that Louisa has raised with us, which is all about the use of social media for a loyalty brand. So before we get into that, let me just introduce everybody. So Louisa, would you like to tell us just quickly about yourself and who you're representing today?
Hi, yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. It's
Pleasure.
a pleasure to be on this side of the table for once. I look after the loyalty program at Hornby Hobbies and customer retention activity as well. So Hornby Hobbies is a house of brands, some of which are pretty well known, particularly here in the UK, but also globally. We're a house of joy. Our business is making people smile. So you may know some of these brands. We've got Scalextrics, Airfix, Hornby, Pocker, and that's the arena that we play in. We also have Corgi as well. So this is in the world of the miniature.
Perfect, thank you. Well, massively iconic brands, and I'm sure there are people who love this as a child, but also carry on loving it all the way through to adulthood. So loyalty must be a real strong pull for the brand.
Yeah, and I think particularly with a brand like Hornby, which is over 100 years old, and really kind of Airfix and Scalextrics as well, but particularly Hornby, I would argue that loyalty is physically built in. You can always extend a track. But I think there's another aspect of this, which is the generational loyalty. And I think that's really, really key as well in some of these really old kind of iconic brands in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more maybe, but before we do, let's bring in Zsuzsa. Please, could you introduce yourself? I mean, everybody knows who you are, right?
I'm not sure about that, Tom, but yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that, though. I'm one of the co-founders of Antavo, which is a technology company that helps run loyalty programs on our loyalty management platform. And Hornby is a customer, so it is really nice when Louisa asked me if I would be happy to talk about this topic. In 2024, I was also elected as Personality of the Year at the International Loyalty Awards. And it's a very big recognition on all the things that we do, the reports that we create, the educational pieces that we create. So it was a really, really nice moment, not only for me, but for the entire company, as this is all, of course, is a team game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, and congratulations again, and a very well-deserved award. So, thanks also for mentioning it. You keep getting that in there, don't you? But yeah,
I'm trying my best to mention it everywhere I go.
Of course.
Is there any other bigger recognition that you can get in our bird? I don't think so.
No, absolutely, and very, very well-deserved. We're very pleased for you. Okay. So we're here today to talk about a brand presence for a loyalty program. Specifically, Louisa raised this with us and a few other people in the industry around should a loyalty program have a social media presence. And it's, I think, really good to have Zsuzsa and myself talking about this because although we are B2B businesses, both Antavo and the loyalty people work very hard at our brand presence and our social media, perhaps mostly in LinkedIn because we're B2B rather than kind of TikTok, etc. But it's something that we really invest in. So I hope that we're going to have something really interesting to say here. So Louisa, talk to us a little bit about what your challenge is with this area. What is your thought process here?
I think I'm very brand first in my thinking, but the brand I'm very brand first about is certainly not necessarily Hobby Rewards. It's Scalextrics, it's Airfix, it's Hornby themselves. And I think that's because each of those names immediately evokes, certainly in the UK and across generations, a whole raft of emotional engagement, which essentially is what loyalty is all about, right? Hobby Rewards is relatively new. We started in 2022. And so my dilemma is, do I now try and recruit a social media team? Should we start building a presence for Hobby Rewards so it can become as well loved and well known as these kind of master brands that we service? Or is it actually just a little bit of a backseat? And if I am taking a secondary place to the brand, which I instinctively feel is the right thing to do, what am I missing out on? There's a lot of kind of social media chatter between loyalty programs or brands in general, obviously. But yeah, I guess that's my question, is like, what am I missing out on? Please convince me to get a social media team. Like, what is that?
Okay, so I think the first thing is, do you need a social media team to build a social media presence? I think you can manage that within your existing marketing function. So, but I think the question you're asking is, does the if you've got a social presence for your brands, if Hornby has got a social media presence, does the loyalty program also need a social media presence?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And if you implemented that, would it actually clash with the brands?
Absolutely that.
Yeah.
Absolutely that.
Interesting. I mean, my view is that the way that people are now, we talk about Gen Zs and social media is very important to those guys. But I actually advocate that generally we're all becoming a bit Gen Z. Even somebody who's my age, who's like literally like a million years old. I'm now obsessed a little bit with social media. I'm not on TikTok so much, but I have accounts for the others and I absorb a lot of material through that. So I think it's just the way of the world now. You just have to have that presence. What would you think, Zsuzsa?
I think that social media is media today.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's the thing. When I was growing up, I watched TV. When my kids are growing up, social media is the default.
Yeah.
There is one important question I think that you need to answer, Louisa. And then if you are able to answer that question, then it means that I think you will also get the answer to your bigger question. And that question is, how much overlap do you have between customers in terms of it's a customer to Hornby or in terms of it's a customer? Let me say it again. How much overlap do you have between customers of the different brands? Because if you have a big overlap, then yes, it can be nice to have one unified brand for social media for the big rewards program. But if you don't have much overlap, I would strengthen each and every one. And I can say that I will strengthen because I checked each and every one of your brand's social media presence. And there are some which are doing very well, but there are some that are kind of not doing well. They are basically a product catalog.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this?
So it's really interesting because Hobby Rewards as a program, and we run off Antavo, so as we've mentioned, so we have kind of an aggregated view of revenue, of who's spending where, etc. And what we find is that the customers that overlap and have purchased from more than one brand are our most loyal in terms of revenue, in terms of visits across all of those brand houses, if you will. However, there is within each brand a really significant cohort of our enthusiasts who are very committed to their specific brand, and they may gift from another brand. So Hobby Rewards is useful to allow people to gift outside of their kind of natural playground and think about and enable a kind of broader conversation about the world of the hobby in general, because we're huge advocates of all kinds of hobbying. Yeah, so I think there is some overlap, and they are actually very important and very loyal customers that we value a great deal. But I do think they all individually, and we see this in, have their own specific area that they want to be in. We also see this in our forums as well. So we have conversations by brand, but there are a few people that dot across.
What this tells me is actually that if there is that overlap between these customers, then it's amazing. Then there is some legitimacy to strengthen Hornby in general. But then I would ask the question, is this Hornby Rewards that would need a social media presence, or it is Hornby that would need much better social media presence? And I would think that this could be Hornby, but the content could be fed from the most loyal members that you know now, thanks to the Hornby Rewards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting. So we've just recently been through, and remember in the 90s, social media included forums. We've actually just launched a new forum for our most prestigious brand, which is Poker. The price points here and the technical skills required are much higher. But it's been an amazing couple of weeks because people are now pouring into the Poker forum, and so we're starting to see a little bit more of that, and the cross pollination, etc. And so in terms of social media, we have invested in a new voice for one of our other brands that formerly hasn't had one. I know it's a kind of old school one, but it is still extremely valuable. And the user generated content, to your point, is exactly what's driving the new interest and getting people to take part that have never been. I mean, the forum hasn't existed until last week. So you're absolutely right. It is the user generated content is the way to go. Hobby Rewards does not have a presence in that forum. Again, supporting the brands here front and center. I think perhaps because it's so new, we haven't given people a reason to talk about it.
Yeah. Is it about, is social media for you about the dialogue then, or is it about getting some presence out there? It doesn't always necessarily need to be a back and forth like a forum. It can just be making sure that you're getting that content out to the right people.
I think loyalty is about the engagement.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't know whether a loyalty program per se occupies that same space. So I mean, we were talking, we've all met before, and we've been talking about the Nectar and the Aldi brand. So Nectar, for example, as opposed to Sainsbury's, Nectar has a loyalty presence. Yeah, and I was looking at it recently, and it reminds people to kind of go in the app. It retweets, as it were, even on its Facebook feed, which has got 315,000 followers. This is the question. I'm like, am I significantly missing out?
Well, that's an interesting one. And there are brands like that, like someone like an Avios as well. So brands of that nature, they are huge global businesses on their own. And they are also a coalition. So Nectar is separate to Sainsbury's because there are other brands within that coalition who can benefit from that touch point, whether it's social media or whatever. And I think they're also extremely long established loyalty programs with millions of people involved. So you raise a good question. Does a smaller brand with a smaller loyalty program need to separate those two out? Now, yours is a coalition, right? It's essentially it's a coalition of your own brands. So there is an argument to say that it is an entity in itself. It'd be interesting actually when we put this out if people would like to comment on what they think around that. Does the loyalty brand have to have a presence across multiple individual brands before it's able to have its own life, if you like? Or actually, is that not the case? Can you have a presence for your loyalty program as well as a presence for your brand?
I have absolutely no doubt that in the listeners today, there will be those secret Scalextrics and Airfix fans. I really genuinely want to hear your opinion, because Hobby Rewards is something I'm exceptionally proud of. It's really good value. It's one of the highest value, highest return loyalty programs that I have ever worked on. And so it is very well loved by those people that know about it. But I don't want it to interrupt that wonderful brand story or brand positioning that we have, that the emotional side of it. So, for example, Scalextrics is very much about that parent-child relationship, and particularly, that father-son relationship, and generational too. And Hornby itself, with its model railways, is absolutely about kind of a grandfather-grandson relationship. And I think that's such an important positioning. I think the joy and the preciousness of those relationships means that I want to instinctively protect that and preserve it, and not kind of step into that party. I want to celebrate it, but I don't necessarily want Hobby Rewards to have a particularly big presence. But, the Aldi social media presence is absolutely legendary. I don't think I personally can be that funny or that cool, but
You can,
I bet our fans could. I bet our enthusiasts are on a day-to-day basis.
I think the biggest difference between a Hornby and an Aldi is that, well, there are two big differences.
Yeah.
At Aldi, it's a supermarket. They don't have so many super interesting things to talk about around their products, because there are millions of products. And yes, we eat things every day. It's like part of life. On the other side, building things together with your father, with your grandfather, these amazing machinery and all these models and toys, these are amazing. So I think you have a content advantage.
Yeah.
Aldi definitely figured behind the scenes is a great thing, but you have an even better material, and it's in the homes of people, especially in the homes of those people who have a grandfather and a father, but these people, these kids, want to be on social media so much. I know Gen Alpha just wants to get out there. So here is your advantage. And going back to the other difference that there is with Aldi and Nectar, their target audience is like every single person in the country. Everyone. While your is much more defined. So I will not try to sweat to see to try to be inspired of what Aldi does. I will use what you already have, this beautiful opportunity to create content in the homes of people, with the very driven child who can drive this, and do it for Hornby. And what I would think the real opportunity lies is that if it's driven from your team, think about this being driven from your team, but for the entire Hornby. So not social media for Hornby Rewards in your team, but social media for Hornby in your team. What do you think about this?
I think I agree, and I go back to your point, your very first point, Zsuzsa, which is social media is just media. So, and you need to get your message out. You have to use all the channels available to you, and social media is a very strong channel. And maybe you're worrying about the fact that if it's a grandfather-grandson relationship, is the grandfather going to be on social media? Yeah, he is. He definitely is.
Absolutely is.
Like my mum, she's actually, I better not say in case she sees this and she tears me up, but she's she's a pensioner. She's an advanced pensioner, but she's on Facebook more than me. So I wouldn't worry too much about the relationships and the ages and the demographic and things like that. As you just said, social media is just media. So you need to get the message out there. But I think you know that. I think the question actually is not around that. The question is, should you create social media presence for Hornby Rewards as well as Hornby and all the other brands? And I would say, yeah, I think you can.
I think what this conversation has made me realize is that I am a little nervous about committing resource to something that I think perhaps could be a risk to the master brands, right? So Hobby Rewards itself actually has a unique opportunity to repost the Hornby moment.
Yes.
It's the other way round. I think that's what I was worried about. I think I didn't want to create its own identity. It's because I don't think the loyalty program is, in this particular environment, one that needs to kind of elbow its way in to the conversation, because the moment that we're talking about the real heart of loyalty with these wonderful brands is about that human moment. It is about that connection. It is about the joy. It's about the nostalgia. It's very precious. A lot of our modelers are solo modelers, and they will show and they will happily explore and show, but it's a precious moment for them. It's a mindfulness moment.
Yeah.
And I think I'm very nervous about, commercially kind of appearing in their world, because I think that would be very disruptive and not in a good way. But I am now beginning to think, you know what? I have a unique opportunity to celebrate that moment, that generational loyalty across all of our brands. And I think I'm going to go away and I am going to see what I can do with that. I'm not necessarily missing out, but I think there may be an opportunity here that I need to grasp. But it's really kind of turned my head around. I wasn't expecting that today.
Good.
I honestly wasn't expecting that. I think
well, glad we could help.
Yeah, I genuinely did not think there was a role for Hobby Rewards, like the Twitter account.
No, I think there is. I think there definitely is.
But now I think there might be, but it's different to what I expected.
Yeah, I think you're right there. It doesn't necessarily need to be a commercial aspect to it. It's more of a sharing and a love and a hobbyist. It's user generated content that will appeal. That will definitely appeal. And it doesn't necessarily need to be kind of in your face and a commercial proposition. So yeah, good. Well, glad we could help.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you both. Glad also that we could resolve that for you, Louisa. That's been fantastic. So thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to sharing over the next coming months what we achieve.
Yeah, excellent. Well, let's do that. Let's maybe in the new year we'll get back and see how you're getting on.
That'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
Right. Thanks, guys, and thanks all to our listeners. We hope you enjoyed the content. We'll speak again soon.